Okay, hello everybody. Boa tarde from Portugal. It's 5 o'clock Portuguese time. I don't know what time it is wherever you're listening. Just a couple of house rules while we wait for people to come in. You are all mute. The people that are listening are you're muted. We can't see you, so you could scream at us, swear at us, you can wave, you can throw up a middle finger. We won't see, unfortunately, but just so that you know where things stand. And you have a questions section in your. We can see thumbs up. Here we go, Paul Berkman's. That's very nice. So we can see reactions. And you do have a question section on your screen or on your phone. And while we wait for people to join in, and before we start with the presentation, feel free to tell us where you're listening from in the world. We always enjoy knowing where our listeners are coming in from. So yeah, feel free to drop us a note in the question section to tell us where you're listening from, and we'll start in another 4 or 5 minutes while everybody joins in. So yes, David, you're listening and speaking from Florida.
Yes, I'm speaking from Sarasota in Florida. I'm actually in a
Wow,
beautiful estate here in Sarasota. Yeah.
very nice. We've got Hans van Eisten in the Netherlands. Hans, how's the weather? I don't want to tell you what the weather is like here right now, but tell us how's the weather in which part of the Netherlands. It's a beautiful country. Cold and rainy. Okay, I'm shocked. I'm
Um,
shocked, Hans. That's not what I was expecting. uh, David David is one of our clients. David, good to see you here on the webinar. Always lovely to see existing clients join us. David is in cold Southport. David, I know that you're going to be here in a few weeks, so don't worry. The weather will be here for you when you come to see your home. So that's exciting. Sorry, you're saying, David, you're in Sarasota.
I mean, actually in Lakewood Ranch. Got to
Wow,
say it like the
fancy name.
Americans say,
Fancy
Lakewood
name.
Ranch. We're
Is it really
we're
a ranch? A ranch? Is it a?
I don't know what my perception of a ranch was had cowboys on it, but so
I didn't
it's
know they
just
had cowboys in Florida.
yeah, apparently it was a huge farm that they developed into
Okay,
a housing estate, mostly for um, they call them snowbirds, people coming from the north, from the cold climates.
gotcha.
So at the moment up north, there's a lot of snow in Canada, in Toronto, and places like that. They've already started to have snow. So they are rushing to get down here to be warm. So yeah, I'm in Lakewood Ranch. I've done a walk around the ranch, but it's not a ranch with animals. It's just the name that they're given to the farm.
Okay.
But absolutely stunning, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah,
Um, yeah, the first time I had heard the word snowbird, I didn't actually know what it was.
yeah,
There's an American client said, I want to be a snowbird. I was like, well, what is that? Tell me what that is. So yeah, the snowbird expression now is alive
yeah.
and well.
We
I've
have a
heard it a
lot
lot.
of we have a lot of them on the Silver Coast, snowbirds.
Snowbirds. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I wonder what the European term for a snowbird would be.
I wonder, hey?
For
Yeah.
the Swiss or the Dutch, what they would call themselves as a snowbird. But okay, we're ready to rock and roll. I think we're going to get going. We've got a good amount of people in. Let's see. We've got Rose listening from Atlanta. Rose, you probably a snowbird. Atlanta is chilly, I think.
Rose has visions of becoming a snowbird, absolutely.
Atlanta, the home of the Falcons. It's an American football team. I know America by not by geography, but by football teams. So
Yeah, I was at Tampa
that.
Bay. I was actually in
Aha,
Tampa Bay
the Buccaneers.
yesterday.
Yeah, the
The
Buccaneers.
Buccaneers, yeah,
Yeah, Super Bowl champions a few years ago. Okay,
apparently, yes.
let's get going. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so welcome everybody to this edition of the webinar. I can't remember which edition it is. We've done quite a few of these over the year, and it's always a pleasure to be joined by people from all over the world. And today's webinar, why the rush for Portugal? I'll introduce myself first before I introduce our guest. So, my name is Dylan. I'm a certified realtor. I'm originally from South Africa. I've lived in Portugal for 15 years. Next year will be my 16th year in this amazing in this amazing part. Always on the Silver Coast from the beginning. Um, and I'm also the host of Portugal: The Simple Life podcast, which you can catch every Monday on all of your podcast channels. And I'm joined all the way from some ranch in in Florida, David,
Sarasota.
Sarasota. Thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, well, I'm David Patricia. I'm the chairman of the Leisure Launch Group. I also immigrated to Portugal 23, going on 24 years ago. Um, Pretty much um, looking for a safer, more balanced lifestyle is what most South Africans probably would be focused more on safer. We were looking for a more balanced lifestyle, and for me, the lifestyle that Europe and with its rich heritage and culture, and the other weakness in my life, food, wonderful, wonderful food, uh, attracted us and our family to Portugal, and we absolutely have no regrets. I live a wonderful, wonderful life with my family in Portugal. These Portuguese that have been so kind and so hospitable and made our lives just something really, really special. Yeah.
Beautiful. You're also the chairman of the Leisure Launch Group. We're going to get onto that and and all that you've built here in Portugal. But as you can see, the title of this webinar, "Why the Rush for Portugal?" This is not an exaggeration. There is a rush.
There's a rush.
Uh, Events from a few weeks ago blew up my phone with messages and emails. There is a real rush for Portugal, and let's get into that. What's happening in the rest of the world? What's changed in today's world, David? That's yeah, that's
Wow.
causing this rush.
I was going to say this year has been a year of change, but you probably the last 5 years I would include in that. The world has been through so many changes in a really, really, really short space of time. Um, Almost change before was something that you could predict. There were elections coming, things like this, and uh, and these last few years have just been dramatic. We've had elections, we've had wars, we've had climate change, we've had just so many things um, changing. I'm in the US at the moment. Obviously, I'm in Sarasota. I like to travel around the world so that I can understand where our clients are coming from. Trying to understand is something that I learned this week. When we talk about community, we're talking about a community that's centuries old. People who were probably initially farmers and they families grew. And but when you talk about communities in the US, you're actually talking about a gated community. It's a completely different thing. And actually, I was quite embarrassed this week because I talk so much about community, especially when I'm being interviewed. And I was thinking, wow, some Americans must be thinking, I wonder where the gate where the gate is. We don't have gates. There's no security. There's none of that sort of thing that we need. So it's nice. It's interesting to visit other countries and understand what motivates them. How do they live? It's important for us to because we're catering. It's a cultural thing for the Portuguese. We like to I consider myself one of them. We like to prepare ourselves for our guests. And one of the best
Yeah,
ways that we've been able to do it over the last 20 years is actually to visit the countries. So I've been all over the world. Every client that has ever visited us, we've always made a point of visiting their country so that we can understand the life and the world from their perspective. In the US, obviously, there's been a huge change from a political perspective, with a
yeah,
change to the from Democrat to Republican.
Republican.
Strangely enough, for me as Portuguese, I always say to people, Portugal is such an old country. You know, it's whatever 900 years old, it has seen all sorts of upheaval, and also Portuguese react less to these changes. I think it has to do with the fact that we're such an old country.
Yeah.
And it's curious to see from a Portuguese perspective how tribal people become. Um,
Mm.
so, from my perspective, and I don't like to step into politics, it seems like people are just equally unhappy, regardless on which side of the aisle they are. Um, but huge change. People are saying, "Listen, I need to relook at my life." And actually, interestingly enough, on both sides of the aisle. So
Mm.
lovely. I mean, beautiful people that I met. So many people that I met. The other thing that especially that affects a lot of our clients who are looking to go to a country with a better climate, with a better environment. Florida, which has been traditionally the market which most, we were talking about the term snowbirds, or for any
Snowbird.
Europeans, we're not familiar with this, but snowbirds are generally people who live up north in colder climates and move down south for the winter months. Um, Florida has been battered by hurricanes, um, and um, I mean, they handle it. I mean, they're absolutely amazingly well prepared, and they repair so quickly. I haven't been to the other states, but certainly here in Florida, they've done an amazing job of repairing the state and the roads and clearing the even the wild areas have been nice. Well, you can see they've been worked on. Um, but the real challenges that investors down south, or certainly in Florida, find themselves in is just the maintenance costs of the properties, the insurance challenges that they have.
Yeah, because there's certain parts of that area where you just can't get insured, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's really challenging. I don't want to say that all areas can't be, but there's a huge percentage of areas that cannot be insured. And then you've got various types of insurance. You've got house insurance, you've got flood insurance, you've got, so you're not only dealing with the same insurance companies. And then also they have the realities that if there is some big disaster, it can happen that the insurance company itself goes into liquidation or foreclosure, and they
Mm.
don't get paid out. So huge challenges. Um, and the other thing that is affecting people a lot is the cost. uh, Florida was considered quite a cost-effective option, certainly for people coming from the north, and it's not that anymore,
Yeah,
especially
that
for
was
us
always my
Portuguese people.
perception. That was
Yeah,
always my perception of Florida, that it was a reasonably
yeah.
reasonable
It's
place to live or to purchase.
Yeah, it's not New York City, but it's not cheap anymore. It's quite, especially Portuguese. We're coming from Portugal. We find it hugely expensive. I always find the cost of living as a good monitor as a cup of coffee. They're on $2.50 for a
Oh,
terrible cup of coffee, and we're still
I know how
on the
much
expensive
you
things.
like your coffees. You can't have that many there like you
Yeah,
do here.
exactly. And then other parts of the world, for other parts of the world, where have you found? I found that the UK quite disrupted. There was a change in government. Um, Certainly, this new government that has come in um, hasn't. Uh, Certainly, the feeling in the market is that they haven't stabilized the market. They've obviously saying to people that they're making some changes that will improve things, and that suffer in the short term but have benefits in the long term. Personally, I'm not so convinced, but certainly the feeling for most British people who tended to wait for the election to see how things were going to go, um, definitely a lot of unhappy people. People are just like, this is not, it's not working for me. Where else? The north, Scandinavia, um, cold, the weather. Obviously, there's always a motivation for people from Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark to move down south in the winter months, so they're a bit warmer. The other challenge that they're having is the cost of living. Really expensive. So for them to move to the southern European countries, where they're still in Europe, with a much more affordable cost of living, with far better weather, um, is has always been an interest. But more recently, the cost of living is one of those things that gives it an added incentive for people to move south. And then more recent markets, actually not more recent markets, the markets that have reactivated themselves, markets like the Netherlands, Belgium, where people are absolutely being slaughtered in terms of taxes and the costs and the hidden costs that they have to support, and challenges to people's property ownership. In Portugal, our ownership of property is sacrosanct. It's near impossible for government to touch real estate, and it's an area that they wouldn't go into, which has also got to do a lot to do with Portuguese culture. What we do is we pass our properties on to our children into the next generation. So um, we're a much more solid country, if you want to call it more solid, in terms of our real estate property rights. And people in the Netherlands and Belgium feel that they've been attacked in that regard, almost been punished in a sense for being good, hardworking citizens who have saved their whole lives. And then
Yeah.
we have Eastern Europe, which obviously with the Ukrainian war, um, there are some concerns with the change in the US and how US politics affects them. There's also pressure from on the to escalate the war. These kind of things makes all the countries on that eastern in Eastern Europe
Yeah.
very uncomfortable. So we have a lot of interest from Poland and Slovakia, other countries, Latvia, countries in the end, and obviously Ukraine being directly in the face of this aggression.
Yeah.
And then the Middle East, obviously Portugal has got a history with the Sephardic Jews, um, still very close relationships. So the Jewish community in Portugal has always felt very safe. Um, and so we have a lot of interest coming from there. And then from
Yeah.
Africa, Africa's always had its challenges and continues to be a market where people feel that they want to move to Europe to have a much safer lifestyle, more balanced lifestyle, but
Yeah.
principally based on security and their own personal security. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
we have a
Uh,
world in lots of
I mean,
activity.
yeah, and we'll get onto Portugal by comparison, because there's a number of factors that are bringing people here when you talk about all these things that are happening around the world. But also from an investment point of view, for people that traditionally would invest in their own country, this is making things much, much harder when you talk about cost of living, when you talk about insurance issues. The UK, they've got a massive issue if they have a property that they're renting out and they want to sell or they want to reinvest to get tenants out of their building is becoming a nightmare.
Yeah.
Um, when you talk about, talk about the Netherlands with all the taxation, inheritance tax, these kind of things, it makes it incredibly difficult when you want to invest your money in real estate in one of these countries as a person that lives there.
Yeah. Well, I have a personal view on inheritance tax. I think inheritance tax is an abuse on people who have, especially if you come from a culture, and I suppose it depends to be on a cultural thing. Um, Portuguese people work for their next generation. It's just the way it is. It's something that when you live in Portugal, you'll understand family is everything. And it's most likely that most families, or certainly of my generation, would have inherited from their parents, and they have a moral responsibility to pass inheritance onto their children. And to attack people that have saved their whole lives, um, because the reality is that people can't afford homes in a foreign country if they haven't saved money and worked really, really hard.
Yeah,
And these are certainly not the people that you should be punishing. So people do feel that they're being attacked in that sense. And then when they have saved money, um, to then be challenged. I mean, I don't want to go into detail, but in the Netherlands, and talking about mainland Europe, in Netherlands and in Belgium, it's actually quite sad to see how they're treating landlords or property owners.
Yeah.
The perception in the press is always that these are faceless companies that are doing this, but it's not. It's ordinary families that decide to save money and buy an extra apartment, which they hope they'll have some sort of passive income from, and then to find that they're being attacked for that as well, which is really really unfair. Yeah, but fortunately we don't have those in Portugal. Yeah.
Well, that
Um,
perfect segue. It brings us back to brings us to Portugal. Uh, Nothing much has changed in Portugal when you look around.
no,
Um, Man,
we.
life
It was
is still
curious.
good.
I had a conversation last year before our elections, and people were saying to me, investors were saying to me, well, with the elections coming up, what's going to change? And I'm like, nothing. And they were like,
Nothing.
no, but there's talk in the press. The reality is that Portuguese politics lives in the middle. Somewhere you're either center left or center right. And any extremes, on whether they be on the right or left, they really tend to only survive one term in a coalition government, and then they don't. Portuguese people are just more centrist in terms of that. So the change has been very little. Um, the socialist government threatened to make implement some laws which was leftist in trying to appeal to that vote, but fortunately, the centre right, which is the PSD, won. Even though they're a minority party, they've been able to reverse and also avoid, can most of those things that honestly I didn't think that they would ever apply them, but it seemed to make headlines, and they were hoping that that would get them more votes. The Socialist Party. But yeah, nothing has changed. We're From an economic point of view, our economy is solid. From a real estate point of view, which is what affects us investors and all of our guests, from a real estate point of view, nothing changed at all. The market we are still have a huge shortage of real estate or homes or a residential property for the demand that we have. Nothing has changed there. Construction has continued. We also have a fortunate position, which remains the case. Portuguese developers are since 2008, 2010, since the global crisis, most of them are self-funded. So a large percentage of them are self-funded. So these little bumps in the market haven't affected them. So projects continue, investment continues. We as a group continue to invest, and the reality is that Portugal is unable to meet the demand for the residential sector that we're in. Let's not confuse things. What appears on the press is very often is affordable housing, which is not the sector that we're in. The sector that we're in is um, upper middle class housing, tend to be second homes or affluent Portuguese who want to live in closer to the coast in much prettier locations. In this market that we're operating in, um, there's a there's the demand is much greater than the supply, and I expect that that will continue for certainly for the foreseeable future. So as an investor, it's a wonderful thing. We know that our investments are secure. We know that our properties, our homes that we've bought, the capital gain on those properties will continue. So a really, really great investment, both in lifestyle, the much better quality of life that we have or that we enjoy in Portugal, but also knowing that one day, if we need to sell or if we decide to pass on to our children, we'll be passing on an asset of much greater value. So it's really, really positive for us in Portugal. Yeah. So yeah, the rush is just because there was talk, there was clickbait. Properties prices are going to collapse in Portugal. The economic indicators were never that, and it's proven that the prices keep going. They keep moving up. Our reality is that the cost of construction has just got much more expensive than it was 10 years ago. We have an inflation of approximately 15% on the cost of construction, which for investors means that their properties will grow
Yeah.
conservatively, let's say at least 10% a year if you want to be really, really conservative.
Yeah.
So it's a really great position to be in as an investor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've highlighted a number of things that are happening in other countries. We spoke in a previous webinar about cost of living in Portugal. It is a it's just a country that works. You've got a good medical system. You've got a good education system. A thing that's big on, you mentioned it while you moved, the safety aspect is
So
huge. You're coming and you're investing in a country that works, and this helps for a property investor as well.
absolutely. Absolutely. People want to feel, I think as an investor, you want to feel that things won't change. Investors need stability. They need
Yeah,
to know and they need to feel that for the next 10 or 15 or 20 years, things are going to remain unchanged. So, whatever the track is that we're on, that's the one that we can see into the future. And that's what Portugal has been able to do for the last 20 something years, nearly, well, certainly in the time that I've been here. Um, the track has always up. The we had the crisis, the global crisis or that Portugal was so affected by in 2008 to 2010. But look at the speed at which Portugal recovered from it. It just shows you that it's a country with depth. It's a country that knows how to tighten its belt. It's a country that knows how to work when they need to. Portuguese people are very, very hard workers. So they know what they need to do to make the country grow. And I think that gives stability. And certainly for me as an investor, makes me really, really comfortable. Yeah.
and then I mean, let's just bring it back to the lifestyle aspect and the human side for people that wanting to come here, that wanting to have a life here. Um, People are just friendly here, man. It's just you look at all these things that's happening in the US, it's happening in the UK, that's happening. It's you talk about we were talking about offhand that they were saying communities in the US are gated complexes, and we were in Sweden not long ago, and people were saying they want community. When we talk about community, we're talking about people that stick together, people that look out for each other, people that say hello to each other. You talk about $2 coffee. No, it's an 80-cent coffee in Portugal.
Yeah.
But when you're having your coffee, you're having a chat with someone who's just happy to see you, who doesn't care
Yeah.
where you sit on a fence or where you sit politically, and they're just happy that you're in their country. This
Yeah.
is huge as well.
Community. Yeah. It's difficult to try and explain to people that have never lived in that environment. Community is something that you can't fabricate. I mean, I'm in the US and I love the US. I visit it very often. But wherever I go, I feel like they're trying to copy something that exists somewhere else.
Mm,
We're trying to create a village center and whereas in Portugal, this is their culture. This is who they are. You
yeah,
know that as an elderly person living in Portugal, regardless of which country you are from in the planet, when you can't look after yourself, there will be a nice Portuguese person who's looking after you, looking out for you. The community looks out for you. And this is what real community is.
yeah.
The way that we do business, the way that we approach life, it's something that I had to learn. It's just beautiful. A nice coffee, the um, how do I describe it? It can't be fabricated. It's something that
Yeah.
takes centuries to achieve. And my hope, and I mean, and I was thinking about this morning. We're a really privileged generation that we're able to experience this. And my hope and my belief is that the Portuguese will be like this in 1,000 years' time. When you walk
Yeah.
past somebody and you say good morning, they're actually happy to say hello, bom dia, tudo bem, how are you? These kind of things. Um, I'm a professional person. I work with a lot of people. I hug people many, many times a day. And it's not a bro hug, it's a hug. Put your arm around a person. People really care about each other, and it doesn't matter whether on which side of the table they are. This is the culture and it's the nature of how people live. It's just a beautiful, beautiful way to live. And I hope that they're able to preserve it forever.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, let's talk about our area because we're based on the Silver Coast.
Yeah.
Not to be controversial, but it's the best part of the country. When you talk about community, you see we're seeing on the slide here these lovely modern homes. They're not in gated communities; they're in
No.
a real community. Your neighbors are around. You've got the village down below. You've got the fish market next door. This is community. So you can have this gorgeous home, but you're part of a real authentic community. But just as the investor, just put the investor hat on for us, David. Choosing the right location. What are the things that you're looking for, and what are you seeing here on the Silver Coast that fulfills that?
Well, the Silver Coast has something special. I mean, I'm here in Florida. It's just a really great place for me to do a comparison. I'm a half an hour, 45 minutes from the beach. Um, to buy real estate close to the beach in Florida is you really need a budget which is scared of nothing. You really need to have a huge budget. What you're able to achieve on the Silver Coast, and I think the secret of the Silver Coast was very simply that it was developed much later than the Algarve. The Algarve, which was traditionally our beach destination in Portugal, um, it developed a lot sooner. It developed, was uncontrolled development, etc., etc. The Silver Coast was able to develop at a much slower pace. It was able to learn from locations, from the other locations. We have no resorts. I think we have 4 golf resorts that are close to the coast, one inland. But this is for the entire Silver Coast. A big development on the Silver Coast here in Florida. A normal development will be a couple of hundred units, 500-600 units. On the Silver Coast, 20 units is big, 25 units is big. These kind of things, this is what's kept the Silver Coast really, really special. And you're able to achieve this in a village which is really close to the water, really, really close to the beach. So it's one of the few places in the world that you're bound to wake up one morning and find a bag of lemons on your front porch. Portuguese have obviously got an enormous supply of lemons because your neighbors will always be there to give you this. So you're able to achieve this on the Silver Coast. I also measure investments from a worst case scenario. I'm saying in the worst possible market, where would I want to own real estate? And if you're on a coastal town, you want to be as close to the beach as you possibly can, is really what it is. If you're in a beautiful village in the center of the country, you want to be in the closest to the center of the village. And this is what the Silver Coast still today you're able to achieve. I mean, for a I don't know, budget of 500,000 euros, you're able to buy yourself a beautiful 3 bedroom, 3 bathroom home with a swimming pool within, I don't know, 200, 300 meters from the beach. This is like an impossibility anywhere else in the world. So, from an investor's perspective, this makes so much sense. Besides the wonderful quality of life that you're going to have while you're at it. So get used to the great food, the wonderful coffees, the nice people, and possibly when you're too old to look after yourself, they'll do that for you too without going into a system. Somebody will be there to care for you. Just beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, and then I mean, you mentioned early on Florida with climate issues. Um, this has got to be a factor as well. We're we're pretty good here along the Silver Coast as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, we're really lucky. I mean, it's where we are. There's this
Just geography, it's not our
geography.
doing.
No, I think it was the Portuguese that wandered around the planet, and the Lusitanians that wandered around the planet and said, hey, this has got to be the coolest spot to be living. I always say when you're choosing a location, look for the locals, see where the locals are living, and then you'll know which is the best location. And obviously, the Lusitanians wandered around Europe and thought, wow, let's just pick this spot. This is really cool, nice, fresh breeze off the ocean, can sail around the world, and we
Yeah, they
got really
discovered
great.
half the world, but they left it to the locals and then just came back to our
Just came
patch.
back. It just came back. It's just, we're just so fortunate in terms of our location. on the most westerly end. Also, we don't have we only have one neighbor, one country that borders with us. So, and really lovely big coastline. I mean, just we are just so fortunate. It's just
Yeah.
yeah, all credit to the Lusitanians. Yeah, kept the Romans out as well.
Now I'm going to ask you to put on your other favorite hat. So, family man,
Ah,
dad, granddad. I mean, just what do you love about living in this area?
uh, I must tell you, as a family man, I mean, my pride in my life is my family, my children, and now my grandchildren. I'm now going on to four and a half. We got one more coming, one more on its way. Um, for me, I feel pride that this is the environment that my children and my grandchildren will be living in. And this is the environment that they grow up in. Um, Again, I travel a lot around the world and I see how people live and I see how unhappy people are and I come back to Portugal and I come back to where we live and I feel I'm so blessed that we've been able to move or to live in an environment that will nurture my grandchildren. I have the wonderful honor that my grandchildren speak more than one language, so we've tried to, grandma and they call me grandpapa. We speak English to them so they can have an alternative language besides Portuguese. But it's amazing to see how they speak fluently both languages and switch between the languages, and just amazing. And that we've been able to provide them that, which certainly as a South African I didn't feel I would have been able to do for my children. I would have felt that my children and my grandchildren, while I was young to think about grandchildren, but that the environment would have nurtured them in the way that this environment has. So yeah, I'm blessed. I'm blessed that fate and my life's journey took me in this direction. Just beautiful. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Um, just for people listening, David, I'm just going to do a bit of housekeeping, if you don't mind. We're going to have we're not going to have a questions and answer section at the end of this, but what we're doing is we're inviting exclusively for people listening to the webinar that they can book an info day session with myself on either the 6th or the 9th of December. You can register now. Either you can at the end of the webinar there'll be a pop-up that you can register, or you can just click on the question section and just write book, BOOK, to book a call. We'll send you up a couple of qualifying questions just to follow up and see if we can arrange a session. It's kind of like a stuffing, like you guys in America, you just had Thanksgiving. In Portugal, we have chicken and we have a good huge Christmas lunch. The stuffing is good for days and days and days afterwards. This is kind of like your stuffing. After the webinar, you can just partake in some stuffing. Okay, I don't know if
I,
that's a good analogy or not, but yes,
Dylan, I would say this as an investor. I would say to people, take advantage of these opportunities. We in an interview like this, I'm speaking generically. I'm
yes,
speaking because I can't. I obviously try and choose examples that would cover most people. But my experience in business and in certainly in real estate is that everybody has a very particular situation. So take advantage of these opportunities, and to your guests, take advantage of these opportunities. Prepare yourself for the meeting. Don't make it a generic thing. We just want to ask you a couple of questions. We're just curious. Prepare yourselves. Get your budgets together, understand what it is that you're looking for, out of what is it that you're trying to get out of Portugal, what kind of, so that you've got really clear questions that can be answered, and questions that we can answer in the context of you and your family. Essential, if whether you're just doing it because you're looking for a better quality of life or more balance, or if you're an investor, be clear, prepare, do some homework for it, and take this opportunity to do this. And these things are free, but do some homework for them and you'll get the best out of them.
yeah. And also, if you're watching this, if you can also, like in the picture on the computer screen, hug each other and smile while you talk to me. It's just
Beautiful.
nice. It just will be
This will be
nice.
a challenge for our Dutch and for our Belgian, um,
No, they hug you. They
Scandinavian
hug you.
clients. Come on, everybody, come
They
in.
hug
Let's
you. They
hug.
hug you.
Let's
It's
hug.
fine. I believe. I
You
believe in
know.
you. I believe in the
I'm
European.
always fan. It's an experience. Let me share something so can people from other countries that are not Europeans. Um, the Northern Europeans tend to be a bit colder. We will down south. We will always say the Southern Europeans are a lot warmer. But it's amazing how after a short while in Portugal, how warm they also become. That not even their families recognize them. Come over to our side. It's just a beautiful side.
Exactly. Let's talk quickly, briefly about some investment opportunities. We've spoken about this area. We're going to focus on the beautiful bay here of San Martino de Porto. You know, in Dubai, you spoke about the Middle East. They spend millions trying to make bays like this.
Yeah,
This one just happened. You know, again, we can't take
just
dominion
there.
over it. We can't say we did a
No.
great job. It's just nature. You know, this bay, a lot of the navigators' boats came into this bay back in the day. You know,
Yeah,
so
a
they
bit
saw
of
the beauty there already.
yeah, a bit of history. The boats that some of the boats, not all of them, they were built along the coast, but some of the boats that sailed to India and Japan and places like that were built in places like Saint-Martin de Port. The bay was nice and shallow. There were forests close by which produced the wood. They even talked to them. Talk the Portuguese will call it the forests of the king, which produced wood for specifically for the boats that would go out and sail. So this is an area that's very deeply steeped
Yeah,
in history. Um,
yeah,
and you even have the Templar Knights for people that love a little bit of history there. There you have
history.
the Alcobasa and Tomar and places like that. Just some
Yeah,
really, but just a beautiful, beautiful place. It's unmatched. You can't, no
yeah.
engineers. There's only one engineer. Don't want to become too religious, but there's only one engineer that can produce something so
Built this.
beautiful.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this because when, you know, obviously looking at this picture, it is so beautiful. It's very clear how they've controlled the amount of development that was allowed and permitted here. You can see the green areas that have been preserved very clearly on the right. You've got Salí de Porto. Look at that green space there in between São Martinho and Salí de Porto. So São Martinho is on this north side of the bay. Salí on the south is just a green space where they've preserved the dunes. This is unmatched. I mean,
Yeah,
man, we've you traveled, I've traveled. They don't do this in the world where they preserve
yeah.
things. And you talk about the exclusivity of properties now, where we do not have the amount of supply for the amount of demand that's coming in. Here you've got these two properties, and maybe you can just give us an overview first of the apartments in São Martinho de Porto. It's called Sal Gabriel. Tell us a little about that, David.
San Gabriel, San Gabriel's got a little bit of history. It's actually the area where what the boats would do is they'd build the boats in the low tide and then wait for the high tide to come in, and was one of the ways of them to move the boats. So San Gabriel, for me, it wouldn't be surprising. Often I find people on the beaches walking around with those metal detectors. Wouldn't be surprised if they found some tools from a couple of hundred years ago, walking through some in the area of San Gabriel. But San Gabriel, interestingly enough, is a ecological zone. So that whole area, uh, just for some backstory, the Silver Coast is one of the few locations in Portugal and certainly in Europe where the forest comes to the sea. That the forest
Mm,
touches the sea. Generally, the forest, the sea is normally on the coast is normally development, and then inland are the forest. On the Silver Coast is one of those few places where the forest or the nature comes all the way to the sea, as you can see from this photograph. And around the San Gabriel, you have all green zones. What does it mean? A green zone means that nothing can be built there, nothing can be developed there, and if there is any kind of farming, it needs to be limited. So you'll find around San Gabriel, quite normally, you'll find a couple of horses, you'll find sheep, you'll find the shepherd taking his sheep past you. You got that, and then you look out not in the distance, a couple of hundred meters away, and there's the beach. There's the bay. You can walk to the bay.
beautiful.
It's really well located, because you have Somerting On the one side, Somerting de Port, which is the bigger village. I mean, this is the population of Somerting de Port, just to be clear, is only a couple of thousand people. Um, and Then you have Salid de Port, which is on the other side, which is also probably less, maybe 1 or 2 thousand people. I'm not sure of the census, but I would estimate it probably about 1,000
Yeah.
people living in that area. So you walking distance. You've also got the wooden walkway that connects the whole bay. So that if you decide you want to have coffee in Somerting today, you go right. If you feel like you want to have coffee in Salid de Port, you go left. It's all really, really close. But what is it? What makes this thing really special from an investment point of view is just that it's literally impossible to find real estate or land that you can build on so close to the water. It's impossible to find locations, certainly for us as investors and developers, to find locations where these two things happen together, where you have access to the sea or to the beach, and you have forest and ecological zone on the other side. Just literally impossible. We have only found one other location, and I've been doing this for 20 something years, location which had a different type of location, but this had these things, which was Valforad, which was the other
Yeah.
property
Well,
that we developed further up the coast, which also had reserve area on one side
yeah.
and the coast or the sea on the other. This is one of those really, really unique places. So from going forward, from a capital growth point of view, obviously it's exclusive. You can't build anything else there. Um, from a from a rental perspective, a really great location. You're by the beach. I mean, you can't do any better than that. But more importantly, from a lifestyle point of view, Jesus, the quality of the location, the peace, the calmness, the nature around you, the beach when you want to go to it. Most people will, um, when we holiday, we go to the beach every day. When we're living in a location, not as much, but just a beautiful place to walk every morning, and just
Mm,
amazing, amazing,
yeah.
amazing location. And it only has, Dylan, I don't know, correct me, how many units are there in the building?
9.
9 units in the building. I mean, this is just the
And
limit.
starting at under 400,000 euros.
Amazing,
Just don't tell
amazing.
those guys in Florida. They'll be banging on
No,
your
they'll
door,
go
you
crazy.
know.
They'll go crazy. They'll go
Let's
crazy.
also talk
And then
about
just
the
something I want to talk about
yeah.
here, Dill,
Mm,
about the maintenance cost of these properties. One, we don't have the maintenance costs that most other countries have in terms of the quality of our construction. We build with
mm,
concrete and bricks. Our properties are built to last 40, 50, 60, 100 years. Um, Whereas
yeah.
locations like the one that I'm in, most houses are built with drywalling and wood, um, which 10 years you need to start maintaining. The other thing is the cost of this property, the cost of maintenance of this property, I don't know, your levies, your monthly levy would probably be in a building like this around about 100 euros a month. Your
Yeah.
property taxes would probably be about, I don't know, 50, 60 euros a month, comparatively to something where I am right now for the same apartment, not with the same quality, never in the same location. You'd probably be paying 1,500 euros a month just on
Yeah.
levies or homeowners. What do they? HOA, as I think what they
HOA.
call it, the HOA levy, and
Yeah.
and your municipal or council taxes in the area.
Yeah.
Great, great property.
And then just quickly, let's chat about the villas again.
Yeah.
An amazing 3-bedroom villa uh, in a location like this, bordering a forest. You can still pop into the village for your bitok or your grilled
your
fish or
or
your
your
morning
grilled fish or
coffee.
your coffee there in the circle in the middle. Um,
And here we're talking under 500K for these villas.
3 bedroom, 3 bathroom villa with a swimming
Cool.
pool. Uh, Equivalents anywhere else in the world? I don't know, eight, nine, nine hundred
Or in,
thousand, a million.
or in Portugal. something
Or
like
in
this in the
Portugal, even
Algarve, you're not getting for under a million. This is
under
what's special.
exactly, exactly. How many units still? Just to give people a sense of
Just 20.
20 units.
Well,
This is the
now
amazing,
17.
now 17.
Yeah,
This is the amazing part of this, and this is from an investor's perspective. This becomes really, really important. Besides the lifestyle, besides the fact that I can walk down into the center of the village, I can go down to the beach, I can walk my dog through the forest right next to me, I can cycle, I can run, I can do all of these things. Um, uh, when I decide I want to sell, I'm only one of 20 as opposed to one of 100, one of 200.
yeah,
Just the capital, the attractiveness of your property when you're selling it, the growth is there, no question.
yeah. Let's move on. We've actually run out of time, but let's just
Oh
kick
my
on for another
God,
5 minutes. That's okay. Just when people start letting us talk about Portugal, we don't stop. It's a problem. So thank you for all of you who are still listening to us talk. But David, you're the chairman of the Leisure Launch Group. You set up this whole program of the Simple Life Home Buyer program. We've been doing this now for many years, but just explain to people what this is and how important, again, with the investor side of things. I mean, if you had had this when you first came to Portugal, I think you would have loved
amazing.
your life. The full property solution right here under one umbrella.
Yeah, I mean, I've always told the story about how I arrived. When I arrived in Portugal, things were quite bureaucratic. I always say to people, I'm bureaucratic for me, possibly because I didn't understand how the system worked. But it could take you 3 to 6 months to register a property. Then you had the licensing issues, and then you had in those days, often properties weren't properly registered. So you bought a 5 bedroom house, which was actually only registered as a 3 bedroom house. Things like this. The challenges were huge. And then if you got into a new build scenario, the challenges were even greater. So for us, it was a typical immigrant or foreign investor experience that you would experience in any other country in the world. Curiously enough, um, there are no countries in the world that I've visited that actually offer a program like this, including Florida, which for me is so curious. I've met so many realtors because as you know, Dylan, I'm a licensed realtor as myself as well, registered in the US. But um, no one is doing this after the
Mm.
literally thousands and thousands of units with all the snowbirds coming down to live in this area. Nobody does this. And I know why, because it's really difficult to offer a service like this. You need to be well organized, well planned. You need to know your business. You need to have an ability to accompany the client effectively for 7 years, which is the average life that we accompany our clients for. You need to do all of these things. So to invest in a foreign country and not have all of these services, all of these people looking after you, for me, highly risky, actually. When I invest in a foreign country and I know that I'm taking risks with all of these things, I just wish that there was another country that could offer investors the same sort of level of accompaniment, just walking or doing the journey with them. And we've been able to do it successfully. We're into the thousands of families that have been through us. And one day later, when they decide they want to sell the property, we're there to take care of
As
that
well.
for them as well. Yeah. And for them, it's a
And
simple telephone call. Yeah.
just to speak about my colleagues, you're going to deal with a friendly Portuguese person in
Amazing.
all of this, and they're going to have time for you,
Amazing.
and be patient with people because not everyone can answer your email straight away. Be patient with people because you're dealing with a human being, whether it's you've got Tim sitting in Belgium, Anna and Bruno sitting in São Martinho de Porto, just good, nice people that are going to deal with you, going to help you find your home. You're going to have a team of project managers like Denise and Sandra and Tanya, who are just lovely to deal with. Paula and her team are going to help you get your house connected to utilities. They're going to link up your internet. They're going to make sure that you can have your Netflix and your Disney Pluses and all these things. You've got Lana and Anna who do your furniture decorations. Sophia, Mariana, Barbara for accounting. This is just amazing. We've got Katerina and her team that are going to help you with your property management and your rentals. You're going to be dealing with human beings that love their country, that love their village, and that are just happy to help.
And
It's cool.
authentically kind. There's
Exactly.
one thing that you experience when you travel to around the world, especially today, um, that people are not authentic when they offer help. It's very rare. You're actually quite surprised when you get offered, when somebody genuinely cares. You feel it, and for the Portuguese, this is just their nature. This is what they do. This is how they feel, and this is how they respect people, and this is how they care for people. So you will find that anybody that has been through the program with us or has been through the journey with us, the feedback is always the same. They were there, they cared, and that we like to improve on. Um, we are nowhere close where we would like to be. I just
Yeah.
for my Our team will know this. Every year we have the same conversation. We want to get better. We know that it's great, but we want to be much, much better. Um, and hopefully we'll just keep working at it with the support of all of our
Yeah.
investors and homeowners.
Yeah. And to wrap it up, I mean, this is what helps to make navigating the buying process just simple. We've got pictures here of some of our happy clients with our people, and it's just a wonderful experience to do this. And yeah, it's the way it should be for an investor.
It's the way it should be. It's really challenging to achieve it because it's a very long journey, but we
Yes,
happily do it. We've
yes,
been doing this for many,
yes.
many years, and we love doing it. Culturally, this is something that we really, really enjoy doing, um, and we'll be very happy to. You'll There's so many wonderful people that'll be happy to help you through the process.
Thank you so much. Everybody listening, just another reminder. There's no questions. Thank you for hanging on for another 12 minutes that we've gone over. Marissa's going to kill
Come
me,
on,
but that's okay.
Portuguese.
It's
In
okay.
Portuguese terms, this is
That's very
not
good. It's very prompt. Very
This is
prompt.
not bad. And I must say
Yes.
this again because I do travel, including in the US. People don't keep time either. They think they do, they say they do. It's just a perception. Portuguese just admit that they do, they just accept it. This is our culture. Be
Yeah.
calm,
Yeah.
enjoy it,
Yeah.
relax. We'll get there.
But please, for those of you listening who want to chat to us more, register for the info days on the 6th and the 9th of December. Come prepared, come with your questions, have your all of your affairs in order. You'll get a prompt from once you register with a couple of follow-up questions, and hopefully I'll be seeing a couple of you on my screen on Friday and Monday. But David, thank you so much for being on another webinar with us. It's been a pleasure.
Dylan, it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure whenever I can share my experience. I certainly don't want anybody else to have to go through the pain that I had to go through. So, if there's any way that I can help people to make it the experience a more enjoyable one, absolutely, I'm on board.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody listening. Muito obrigado and boa tarde.
Obrigado e boa tarde.